Did you know that 90% of the world's millionaires invest in real estate? Well, I'm Angel with the Academy Presents Real Estate Investing Rocks, and I'm here to help you if you want to go for your piece of that pie. In the past 10 years, it's probably been easier to be profitable than it's going to be in the next 5. So I bet there's going to be, I hate making these assumptions, maybe less competition over the next 5 years because people are going to fall off. Because if you're not as profitable as you thought you were going to be, then the people who invested with you aren't going to be as happy to invest with you in the future. And so I would assume, which I know what that makes of you and me, but I would assume that you'd have a little bit lower competition as a syndicator if you're really good at it and you have that analytical side on your side.
The lack of competition will not come until they get hurt. So as long as nobody's hurt, you'll still see the competition. It's not necessarily, it's relative. So yes, if you don't have strong operators and you're in a bunch of deals, your profit's going to suffer. If you have strong operators, they know exactly what to do. They're going to make the best of the situation, and they're going to work really hard to keep the business going through this process. Profits are mostly made once the correction has hit. So this is going to be actually the opposite, in the fact that if you know what you're doing, you can make a lot of profit, a lot. The problem to date for, like you said, the last 10 years has been people have been not really investing time into the appreciation and benefiting from the appreciation. So they've made a lot of money riding the wave up, but they haven't had to invest heavily in the operations or time into the property. That's about to change. And that's where you're going to see this big divide between the people in the space, is which ones truly are strong operators, which ones know how to pivot into strong operators, and which ones were riding appreciation up and taking a resume over it. So that's what's going to be figured out now. You will see a change in who the key players are in the next 5 years, because some of them will fall to the side or fall away. But you know, this is really where all the money is made, is in when it becomes a buyer's market. That's what we want. That's how the huge amounts of profits are made. But it's got to be the right people leading that ship.
Well, and just this is unlike anything we've ever seen, because the people alive today have never seen the potential that this has for us. I'm not going to say that it could be as bad as the Great Depression, but I think it can be pretty bad, because like I came to the realization of earlier, we've still got the broken supply chains, and there are still countries that don't want any Americans in them. There's still countries that are closing their borders. There's countries that are going back into lockdown. There's still a lot of things going on that that I don't think we've seen the true effects of. So it's going to be really interesting, to say the least. You know, we're wanting to go active side, and it's scary because I like to be able to look at some history and see, you know, get some kind of bearings, what can happen, what cannot happen, and especially with being an economist, but there's nothing to compare it to. And so I've thought about like looking back at like third world countries and looking at their growth scenarios, but we're not at third world country level. But some of the effects I think are going to be equal, but I don't know. I mean, like after a hurricane, a lot of times you can do a third world growth study into an area that was hit really hard, like Katrina. And you could look at what happened there and use some of those growth theories that you see in a third world country and apply them successfully. But it's almost like that's not going to be the same for us, because we didn't see like physical devastation, but there was definitely economic devastation that occurred to many, many people.
Sure. you don't want to solve it don't try to go solve world peace through this process. Okay. You got to do you got to, the way to make it a better world is work on you. So do your part. Don't get ahead of yourself. Don't go into what could happen or what if is out there. You can only control what you can control and no more. So how are you going to make this something that's a positive thing in your life and in your family? That's what the focus should be. Katrina, that's a really interesting case study. Obviously, the infrastructure there broke down when the hurricane happened. We had different government agencies and different levels of government that all were wanting to have somebody else make the decision. And then the levees broke. I don't know if people realize that, but the reason that place flooded was not from the hurricane. It was because they didn't make a decision, and then the levees broke, and then the government didn't make a decision about how to help people. And so there was a lot of that. It was interesting because John was actually down there at the time. So the news that was being portrayed for the people who were local was very different than what the nation was being told on the news. It's a very different message. But people were displaced. And a lot of them, I think you remember this, they migrated. They went to Houston, Dallas, different towns, and relocated and left everything behind. And if you go back, they just had their 15-year anniversary. If you go back to Louisiana right now, you will see brand new house next to vacant lot next to exactly like after the hurricane. And it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 down a row. The whole town is that way. Because the other thing that happened is the government came in and said, we don't want investors here that are not from Louisiana. So we're only going to let Louisiana people buy up all these distressed properties and rehab them and put them back on the market. Well, what did that do? It absolutely destroyed the real estate economy in New Orleans, because you have a 2005 new construction, beautiful home where the insurance money was used to rebuild and make it much, much better and more hurricane resistant, next to nobody, next to somewhere that now has the potential to be called the cops on and crime happening there. And then the very next house is a brand new construction. There's a lot of community pride in New Orleans, and it's a very tight-knit family community. But the decisions that the government's made at the different milestones really impacted what happened next. So I can't control what the government's going to do. I can't control what decisions they're going to make. I can only play inside those rules. So I have to know what the rules are first and then respond in the best business decision we can to that rule. And I can't do anything on anybody else's apartment complex except mine. I've got to stay laser focused on what I've got right in front of me, because even though the world has changed, we've still made promises and we're still responsible for millions of dollars. So we have to make sure we're paying attention to what we have control over and spending our time on that.
Well, I just think it's beautiful that you focus in on that micro, because like what you were saying is, hey, Angel, you can't fix the world. Because I'm a big picture thinker. And I miss the details. I'm not going to say that it's who I will be forever, but it's definitely who I am currently. And so I know that I need someone on my team that is details oriented. And my husband, Jason, is very details oriented. So we're a good pair as far as that goes. But as we move into more active roles, I know that we need people around us that can force me back to the micro and be like, hey, that's a squirrel, Angel.
It takes both. You need a visionary and you need the detail-oriented person. You need both. Where are we headed? How are we going to get there? Those two questions are answered by usually two sponsors. And then there's a collaboration between the two, because I see the vision and they see the detail, but they don't have to be responsible for it. They just partner. And so definitely team sport, love it. I'm really excited about economies of scale, because it brings together a whole lot of golden nuggets a lot faster than doing it all by yourself, one by one.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's kind of where we're at too. It's hard to scale when you're in single family. It just is. And trying to mitigate that vacancy risk is tough, because when a single family home is empty, it is 100% empty.
Yep.
There's no partial there.
Yep.
So you need a lot more to be able to spread that risk. But it's tough to be able to get into multifamily on your own. And so syndication is just a beautiful vehicle to be able to scale quickly and efficiently. And when you have the right team, it's amazing.
Yeah, it comes together, and it's not all because of one person. So, I definitely love having somebody else take some of the weight off. Being in single family, it felt very much like I had to, like you said, when you have a vacancy, all of a sudden the rest of the world has to stop, and I have to go get that property repaired and leased up. Nothing else matters till that happens. Well, here, I'm not doing anything alone. There's always a team. There's always somebody else who can take a call or get back to the lender or talk to the regional at the property management company about an issue. And it never has to be the same person. It's a team. And I really love that about this, the syndication model. I even call our LPs team members. They are truly part of the team to me. Thank you for joining our team is what I tell them when they decide to subscribe, because I couldn't do any of this without them. It's just as much them as it is me. It's just another team player.
Wow. So how does the whole operating team stay on the same page? Do y'all do like weekly meetings or?
We have a couple levels of things between the entire sponsor team. We meet quarterly at a minimum for the whole sponsor team. Then a lot of them help us with the behind the scenes pet projects, like, hey, we need to review this financial packet to see if you see any holes. We need to get some information over to the lenders so we can recover some CapEx replacement escrows or something like that. So we have a lot of pet projects that will delegate out to one of the sponsors. And then there's usually a couple of key players that are asset managers that are dealing with the day in to day out. They're on either weekly or monthly calls with all the third-party vendors, and they're really dealing with the decision-making part. But because the team is usually bigger than just the asset managers, we create ways for the team to get involved when we are at capacity, or there's no reason why I have to handle this project. Why don't I give it to you and you can go handle it and come back when it's done? So we do a lot of, I guess, handing off and giving back, and that creates collaboration. It allows people to feel a sense of vested interest in a deal when they know more about it, even if it's just, hey, I need you to go research whether or not we should re-sign our laundry contract, or we should go purchase owner operated laundry machines once this contract expires. Okay, go do. But it doesn't have to be me who does all that research, and I don't have to push it off on my property manager who's going to get one of each or maybe a couple of each, and then stop. Like, they're not looking at it from an ownership perspective. Like, why would we care one way versus the other? Well, as an owner, you think about that stuff. Like, we are making this much a month through a contract where we revenue share, but what we could do the exact same thing if we own, but then we have to take into the account the repairs and maintenance and the upkeep of those units and what it costs to have the whatever payment processing system. It's a research project. So, we are able to leverage the entire GP team by just remembering that they're there and they're there to help, and they want to learn everything too, even if they're not the key player on that particular asset.
Well, that is super awesome. I don't want to take up all your time today, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Guys, I hope that you got something out of this, because I know I did. This was super amazing. Jennifer, thank you so much for sharing everything you've got. Well, not everything you've got, but sharing so much of what you have. That was super awesome. And
Thank you for having me.
Well, just thank you for being so willing to share. I come from a job where some people do share, some people don't. Education's kind of weird that way, because you don't want people stealing your ideas, but at the same time, you want to be known for your ideas. So it's a tricky little tightrope sometimes. But so thank you for sharing your ideas and sharing that information with us. Again, I hope you got something out of this, and we will see you next week on our next episode. So have a great day. I hope you had a wonderful holiday weekend. And I will see you next time, guys. Have a great day.
Bye, guys.